Politics is supposed to be about changing the world, but the world is changing profoundly, or rather, the world has changed. We're more connected than ever through technology and other forms of communication, and we increasingly have global identities and identify as citizens of the world. At a national level, we feel disconnected. We feel disconnected from political and economic elites, and much is said about disengagement with the conventional political system. Apathy, distrust, disillusionment, these are all words that have been associated with declining participation, and we've got a politics that's associated with negativity, blame culture, and that may be true, but it's, I think, a symptom, not a cause, and that the relationships between people and institutions are changing, and our expectations of conventional institutions and systems does not align with the choices that we make in our everyday lives. So we as citizens, we feel unrepresented, and often that means that we feel helpless as a result, helpless to affect the world around us. And this sort of anti-politics manifests itself in various different ways, from new political parties like Podemos in Spain to Donald Trump. But really, at a local level, for the ordinary person, what does political engagement mean? Very little. Very little about sort of the way that we go about in our everyday lives. And at a national level, politics is trying to adapt. Politicians are trying to reconnect. We're seeing different behaviours in voting, and the rise of issues-based campaigns, whereby we're seeing sort of causes and various online platforms where you can vote on petitions and that sort of thing. So things are changing, but really voting for national and local politicians happens every 5 years, and the general public, we don't believe we have much, if any, political influence. So what do we see at a local level? We are seeing local government cuts, the effects of austerity, many of which are yet to be seen, and communities are challenged by declining neighbourhood services, closures of local amenities, and the decline of high streets and town centres. And even now in times of growth, we're seeing ongoing cuts to many of the most disadvantaged. But that's within kind of the wider erosion of social fabric. And that really paints quite a bleak picture of the UK. But in spite of that, we're seeing lots and lots of positive stories at the same time. Stories about local people taking matters into their own hands and addressing market failures through locally led, small-scale solutions which don't need the state to intervene and don't need the private sector to come and invest. And that's local ventures which benefit local people, for example, community-managed parks and green spaces, people who want to have outdoor space in their local community, and if the local authority can't provide it, then they go ahead and they just run it themselves, take over the management, take over the facilities. We're seeing things like community-led transport, volunteer-run public services, buses in rural areas where none exist, and that goes from running the bus service, driving the bus, owning the bus, crowdfunding the bus. Communities can make it happen. And pop-up shops, revitalising high street properties and building local employment solutions for people who are unemployed locally, young people perhaps. So these are all examples of where people are coming together to improve their local areas, using innovative, enterprising ways that are also sustainable over the long term because they're baked into the local community without waiting for state intervention or private providers. So what are the building blocks of these examples? I've named a few, but there's hundreds that are springing up across the country. What are some of the common factors that we've observed across these small-scale success stories? They use the things which community groups and civil society organisations are uniquely positioned to use, and to do, to unlock the benefits and bring social and economic improvements to people's lives, and to use those opportunities to make challenges into solutions, really. One of the ways in which they do that is through assets, and assets is one of those really annoying words that is used to sort of mean everything, I think. But I see using assets as using what we've got, so using what's available to us in terms of resources, time, knowledge, and relationships. And giving time is priceless. It builds in sweat equity into local solutions and ensures that people have ownership. The second thing is anchors, and that's another slightly intangible word, but anchor organisations acting as the locally binding things that can achieve multiplier effects, so that effective partnerships and solutions between voluntary, community, private and public sectors can add up to something bigger. And the third thing is learning, the importance of knowledge exchange and peer learning, and building those networks that can be facilitated through technology, so that we can share experiences and learn from others. And you'll see where I'm going with this. I think HomeStart has all three of these factors: assets, anchors and learning, and building up those communities of friendship, building up those networks and supporting each other and sharing experiences. So what if we could use these three cornerstones and use them to turn problems into solutions, tackling the most pressing social issues of our time that are often publicised as negative things, but changing those into opportunities to really make positive change. And what if we could be more enterprising and apply social innovation to those issues? So I'll give you a few examples. Gender inequality. There's lots and lots of stuff at the moment in the news, on social media, about feminism, the rise of a kind of new age feminism, people talking about women in the workplace, people are talking about everyday sexism, that sort of thing. What if we went beyond campaigning about those issues to mobilising around those issues, from the individual choices and narratives that we hear to practical action, such as how communities of feminists can work in the interest of their local places and run their own services, for example. The Refugees Welcome campaign was something which took the UK by storm, but we're talking about campaigning and donating and lobbying local authorities. What if we could sort of inspire practical-led action, refugee-run shops and cafes where we could visit and spend our money and actually support people practically to get on and settle in our communities. And another key social issue, the ageing population, often presented as a burden on society or something which gives rise to intergenerational unfairness. What if we could change that narrative and practically apply it to intergenerational exchange, skills swap, the way that young people can be resourceful and entrepreneurial and work with other generations? So these are all examples of ways in which we can use opportunities to apply practical and resourceful and entrepreneurial solutions to some of the most pressing social and economic challenges. And I don't need to tell you about the assets and the anchors and the learning potential which HomeStart brings, as that's the very thing about community-led solutions, is that the people doing it know best. And that will obviously vary from place to place, and again, that's the nature of being local and being specific to local places. Political influence, I suppose, to summarise, is not the same as political power, and power can lie in making small changes at a local level. We choose how we engage with the spaces and places around us, and we, as people, are the building blocks for social capital as a foundation for healthy and resilient communities. And the political system will respond if we do. Politics can be negative. We hear a lot of kind of bad things or complaints about the political system, but politics is also built on success stories and positive examples and evidence of what works. Converting what is often seen as apathy and alienation into power does mean building on those assets, those anchors and those learning, but I suppose the main thing that I've observed already today is that HomeStart is in a really unique place to do that and help build a national story, a better national story, and a wider politics of trust and friendship and community. Thank you.